Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto shattered his hollow mask? Sasuke. 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 Why does everyone like Sasuke? A pause, during which a menacing grumble is heard. Everyone, he's such a jerk. A faint voice sounded through the walls of Naruto's apartment. Can it, Naruto, it said. Naruto stopped in his internal, although not really, debate over why a jerk like Uchiha Sasuke was so well liked, while he wasn't. Why only me? But Naruto knew why only him. Only him because he was a Jinchuriki, SP. But not, because Gaara was too. He felt mildly guilty for a time. Everyone knew Gaara was worse off. Gaara had no friends, no one to protect him. Hell, even Akatsuki had gone after him first. Yes, Gaara had gotten the worse end of the deal, from not being able to sleep to having nothing to occupy him while he was always awake. It made Naruto angry that they were treated like that. Gaara had had no choice in the matter, and was continually attacked for it, and Naruto himself was supposed to be regarded as a hero. Did it not occur to the people of Leaf Village that, Naruto thought angrily, they were insulting the fourth Hokage by not respecting his death wish? By that time, Naruto realized he had been making excuses. Now, he was not angry at the villagers, not even Sasuke. He was angry at the fourth Hokage, for choosing him to save the village, to contain the Kyuubi vessel. Why Naruto? Why did Naruto inherit all of the detrimental effects of the demon fox? He was sure the blasted thing had stunted his growth. Even at the ripe age of 16, he was barely 1 inch taller than most girls in the village, and practically a midget compared to the other boys. And what girl would want to date an annoying loudmouth midget when she could date tall, serious, handsome Sasuke or genius Shikamaru who was so cool by sacrificing himself for a cause during missions? And Neji. Cold, aloof, noble Neji. Neji who was beaten down because his father was born second, poor, beautiful Neji. Naruto conveniently forgot that the only reason he could claim to be taller than the girls was his sunny, spiky blonde hair. Which brings us back to why Naruto was cursing the Uchiha heir so vehemently. Well, maybe not, but you wanted to know that anyway, right? Scaredy cat. Dobi. Dead last. Loser. Moron. Usuratomkachi. Earlier that day, Naruto had gone to meet Team 7 for a reunion, even though Team 7 had disbanded when they had become Chunin. Sasuke had deigned to come to this meeting even though he was an Avenger, and Avengers just didn't attend reunions, to humor Kakashi, who had lost all of his close friends in the course of missions and was, naturally, lonely. Not to disregard Maida Guy, but meaningful conversations between the two consisted of Guy posing and claiming that if he didn't defeat Kakashi this time, he would run 500 laps around the village perimeter on his arms, and Kakashi sighing and either attempting to escape, waiting for a convenient distraction to divert Guy's attention, and if he was feeling generous, favoring Guy with a short challenge, which Kakashi usually won anyhow. Because of this, Kakashi usually spent his free time pestering his only Genin team or reading Icha Paradisu. When Naruto had arrived at the bridge, he enthusiastically greeted his rival, and was rewarded with a nod and a quiet grunt. He had then entertained the fancy that Sasuke didn't really know how to speak the human language and spent his time consorting with pigs, and had covered his mouth in a lame attempt to disguise his laughter. Sasuke noticed Naruto laughing at him and rudely asked what he was laughing about. Naruto, who was not quite stupid enough to say what he was really thinking, had declared, "I'm just imagining how I'm going to kick your butt next time we fight." Sasuke. Notice how Naruto is not using the impolite suffix, teme, in conjunction with Sasuke's name. HN. Whatever, Naruto Baka, had been the brunette's reply. Take notice, again, how Sasuke instigated the ensuing argument. Baka. WW. Cat got your tongue, scaredy cat? Sasuke teme. Naruto roared. How dare he? At least, Sakura wasn't here to witness this battle of wits. That's not really all you can think of, is it, Dobi? Sasuke was gleeful. You wouldn't know it to look at him, but he was filled with unadulterated happiness. TME. Naruto's voice was becoming slightly strangled. They hadn't actually seen each other in months, not exchanged words in almost a year. Why was Sasuke acting like they were 12 years old again? TCH. Guess that cat really did get to you, dead last. Or maybe you're just getting slow to do this. Sasuke supposed he should feel bad to take advantage of Naruto like that. He would have done the same thing had Sakura arrived first, but Naruto seemed to always have bad luck. Bad luck that Sasuke had to unload his frustration over Itachi on him. Naruto was becoming speechless. Quickly and methodically, as was Sasuke's way, he was insulted with every mean and embarrassing name he had been subject to at the hands, or mouth, of the young Uchiha. He just didn't understand. In the midst of all this, Sakura arrived. What did Naruto do this time? Sasuke-kun. So assuming, she always was. HNN. Sakura's head whirled around in a splay of pink. Naruto, quit bothering Sasuke. You probably deserve this, anyway. Oh. Joy. He had missed getting yelled at for no reason. Really, he had. No, really. RRRREALLYYYY. Naruto's eyes had narrowed at the two of them, but stopped before Sakura could yell at him again. Sasuke quit in his attack of Naruto with someone else around, and the three stood at the bridge for several hours, punctuated only by Sakura asking Sasuke how he'd been. But not Naruto. Never Naruto. When Kakashi eventually showed up, he had given his customary bullshit excuse. Got lost on the road of life for real, this time, guys. Sue. I'm afraid we'll have to reschedule. He vanished with a hand seal and a poof before any of the trio could react. Hot date, huh? Sakura stated. But she wasn't all that upset. Kakashi had given her an excuse to spend time with Sasuke-kun. Even if Naruto had to be there. Naruto couldn't take it. He had to endure. That for absolutely no reason. What? The beep was wrong with Kami today. Why couldn't Sasuke see that he wasn't that annoying Dobi of 4 years ago? That they were equals, no matter how witty Sasuke was, and he still wasn't. Couldn't Sasuke see that their friendly rivalry was being strained by his childish refusal to see how things had changed? They were Chunins, damn it. With a wave and a yaw, he took off for home to vent his frustrations by yelling. Yamanaka Ino, on the other hand, was blissful. The one, the only, Uchiha Sasuke had just walked past her family's flower shop, with Sakura right beside him. Practically hanging off his left arm, to be precise. And you know what? He had done the most wonderful thing ever. It was the most beautiful thing a girl could possibly see. He had called Sakura, it appeared, a big forehead and annoying. As in, both. None of that namby-pamby it makes me wanna beep it crap. Piss off, pure and simple. Instead of making a move on Sasuke as most fangirls would, however, she went back to tending the displays within the store. Ino was not stupid. She knew Sasuke was prickly, and if he went off on his ex-teammate, she didn't want to know what would happen to her. All she needed to know was that her biggest rival in the battle for Sasuke-kun's heart was out of the running. Sakura could go revive dead fish or something for all Ino cared. Sasuke's scowl increased and he ambled away from the crestfallen cotton candy head. He didn't understand why she was so surprised. He had made it perfectly clear when they were teammates that he wanted nothing to do with her outside of ninja duties. There was absolutely no reason for that to change the way she wanted it now. Sasuke's only responsibility was to protect a fellow ninja if he or she needed help, and he was no longer obligated to help her out for the sake of Kakashi-sensei's teamwork. At present, he had no desire to begin a relationship. He was much too preoccupied with training for the Junin exams. He was already several years behind Itachi. Sasuke knew full well that he could die. He didn't intend to, of course, but if the high-level missions he planned to take on didn't kill or maim him, Itachi could. Itachi was a monster. But Sasuke would at the very least take Itachi out with him. Besides, if he didn't die, he wouldn't take a ninja for a wife. Everyone knew that ninja babies had a high mortality rate, and Sasuke would need a healthy wife, or 3, capable of bearing many children. 2 or 3 babies would not revive the Uchiha clan. Sasuke had a plan. He would marry and take on mistresses. No one would mind. He was the precious Uchiha, the last. He would father many children, and he would stay at home to protect his family from anyone who would bring ruin to the Uchiha clan. Sasuke could do this. He would earn money from his current missions, and he had hardly tapped the resources of the vast dead clan, of all the Uchihas. His plan would work. True, it was a foolish plan, for anyone else, but he compound Uchiha, the Uchiha, and nothing he did could go wrong. Sasuke continued to walk away from Sakura and didn't look back. He wandered about, where, exactly, he knew, but not what to call it. Not home, certainly. The living place of the late Uchihas had ceased to be home to Sasuke the evening he had come home to find his parents dead on the floor, bathing in their own blood. Perhaps, abode would be more fitting. Or dwelling. No, habitat. The others sounded too affectionate. Presently, he arrived at the Uchiha compound. That place that had once thrived, filled to the brim with a powerful, influential clan. Where everything possible, from wall hangings to furniture to body parts had been emblazoned with the proud colors of the red and white family Uchiwa. But now the people were all gone away, to their new homes in the family plot, and the once vivid red had dulled in the pure white grade. Now, all Sasuke lived in were reds and grays. When he walked about, he could still see the crimson that painted the large area over the dull grays, like the corpses were still strewed about in a negligent manner, like they had been performing some macabre dance before they dropped to the ground, dead at the hands of Uchiha Itachi. Sasuke observed the red on gray on red as he traipsed through his family's blood, toward the manor, where he still resided. He strode through the halls, in a memorized pattern to avoid the place of most horror, where the red still was, as crimson as the day it was spilt. He stayed well away from the places he never went, as a prodigy could never stray. Except for the prodigal son, who had, just once, and had never come back but one time, not to reconcile, but to seal the deed. Sasuke came to a room cloaked in gray. He stood in the doorway, and allowed the power, the strength that emanated from the walls, the bedsheets, to envelope him, to pressure his mind and remind him of the task he never forgot. Here was absolute safety. In this room, no one had died. In Itachi's room, no one could die. Sakura stood on the street, her head hanging low. It was over. All over. Sasuke had, in a sense, disowned her. Why would I want to be with an annoying big forehead weakling like you? And why would he? She was only a pathetic medic nin. As if Sasuke-kun would need her help. Oh, the shame. Sakura had lost her purpose in life. To measure up to Sasuke's standards. And if she hadn't even come close by now, she never would. No amount of Tsunade-sama's training would help. And even as she thought it, her subconscious knew that the shame was a sham. By tomorrow, she would have convinced herself that the incident had all but never happened. Sasuke didn't mean the cruel words he had said to her, he was just stressed. Stressed and misunderstood. And why shouldn't he be? He had survived the Uchiha massacre, grown to adolescence pestered by those other girls constantly, dealt with being on the same team as that annoying jerk and all the troubles that went along with it. Naruto had only been holding Sasuke back, and surely that had frustrated him. But for right now, Sakura felt like she should cry. She didn't. Ninja were taught not to reveal emotion, and she didn't have so little control that she would burst out sobbing in a public place. Sakura stood with her head down for a few more moments, steeling herself for the sympathetic or triumphant stares sure to greet her. Until, that is, she heard humming. Normally, one would expect humming to make someone happy, but Sakura. That was not her way. And, now, she was taking notice of where she was. Slowing turning her head, which was still hanging down, she came face to window with the Yamanaka flower shop. And, one blonde pig working inside. The source of the humming. The blonde bitch was innocently cleaning, picking up pots to clean away spilt dirt and sprucing the petals and leaves, rearranging the bouquets, humming all the while. But Sakura knew better. Ino didn't particularly dislike working in her parents' shop, but she didn't like it enough to hum, either. She claimed that the aromas made her sneeze from time to time in the spring or when it was windy during the summer or early fall, but everyone knew she didn't really mean it. Since giving up her status as an active kunoichi, Ino had dedicated her time to arranging various flowers, all sizes and colors. The rumors were that Ino had been satisfied with the results of the first Chunin exam, and she didn't feel that her skills were improving enough. Well, it was about time that Ino realized Sakura was better. Are you beeping laughing at me, bitch? Sakura's chakra-enforced feet made small craters in the ground. Are you beeping laughing? She slammed her palms into the large glass window of the display. A shower of broken glass, stems and flower petals struck and sliced at Ino's fair skin. Or rather, it would have, provided Ino hadn't moved. As it was, She had still suffered numerous shallow cuts on her back. What the hell? You think you can beeping rob my store? Ino stood up and a lavish amount of petals fluttered to the ground. And? Big forehead. What are you doing trashing my shop? She leaned back, hands on her hips, and laughed. You don't really think you won't have to pay for this, do you? Sakura growled and her shoulders shook. Stop laughing at me. Ino's arms dropped to her sides and her face gained a confused expression. Crap, did she hear me? You bitch. Sakura charged forward and swung her fist blindly at Ino. You can't have Sasuke-kun. The punch grazed Ino's cheek as she dropped to the side. Sakura. Stop that. Ino, on her backside, began to move her legs and propel herself backwards. URRAAA. Sakura stopped and stumbled, her assault finished. She fell to the ground, inches from Ino's feet. Ino. You can't even watch the shop for a few hours without getting in trouble? Ino's mother and father stood in front of the broken window, the former with her arms still positioned to knock the Haruno out. He. Sheepishly, Ino patted the back of her head to remove any stray plant parts. She only cut her hand on a shard of the window. Fish are good for your brain. Now, Ino-kun, tell me why Sakura-san went berserk on our shop window. Ino's ka-san gently prodded. Her Otou-san stood behind his wife, nodding patiently and acting supportive in general. But not speaking. Speaking was not the place of the husband on such matters. I don't know, ka-san. Ino kept her face stoically composed. Because, in truth, she wasn't completely sure. She understood that Sakura had been upset at whatever Sasuke had said to her, and even more so at Ino's inexplicable happiness, but Ino did not understand why, exactly. Why did Sakura value Sasuke most? Why had Ino helped her from the bullies, to gain confidence, to discover her beauty? Why had Ino chosen a deluded freak for a best friend? Why was Ino, who had supported Sakura in every way, not important enough when compared with Sasuke, who only threw insults and shuriken at his admirers? Ino had been perfectly willing to battle out the rights for Sasuke's heart as friends. But why hadn't Sakura? Perhaps, Sakura had decided to be in it till the death, and friends had no space in her world, which was only for her and Sasuke. Are you sure, Ino? That patient voice again. Well, I think she said something about laughing. She had been walking with Sasuke before. Ino would not abide Sakura's foolish behavior anymore. She wasn't stupid, she wouldn't fight. Passive resistance. Like she would stand a chance against Sakura in a fair fight now, anyway. Ino's mother sighed. That would be it, of course. Uchiha Sasuke-san was the village's most eligible bachelor, a powerful ninja, and exceedingly handsome, but he was inadvertently a troublemaker. If only he wasn't so pretty, there would be less competition amongst the younger kunoichi, her daughter and her once best friend included. She could only thank Kami-sama that Ino had given up on gaining the young Uchiha's affections through violence. You should be more careful around her, Ino-kun. You know how volatile she can be. With that, Ino's mother set off towards the shop to begin repairs. Ino-chan, we should go, too. We wouldn't want Sakura-san to wake up and find us outside her house, Ino's father winked conspiratorially. They've been outside the Haruno residence, by the way. Hi, Chu-san, how about getting some ramen? That conspiratorial look again. Chu-san, I can't, it's not on my diet. Ino cried, scandalized. Sushi, then, maybe. A recent article in the newspaper said fish is good for your brain. It was a blurry sight that Sakura opened her eyes to. A blurry sight. Why were all the colors so blurry? It might help if you opened your eyes all the way, dear. Ah, one of the blurs was moving its mouth. Wait, the blur wasn't really a blur at all, it was Sakura's ka-san. Anu. Ka-san, how did I get here? Sakura chose not to finish her thought and blushed. She remembered what she had done before she had blanked out. And if she was home, then it was likely that her mother knew as well. You don't remember? Well, Yamanaka-san and her husband brought you here. Unconscious. Do you remember why? Ooh, the expectant, but not judgmental voice, the bane of all teenagers. Ah, Sakura wasn't quite prepared to say it herself. You wrecked their store. broke their window and destroyed many displays as well as a goodly amount of their stock. And apparently they found you about to demolish their daughter. Sounds right. Nay. The voice was getting a little more forceful every time. Hi. Sakura admitted meekly. And you know what? They aren't even going to press charges. They are going to pay all the damages themselves. They even carried you home after bandaging your self-inflicted injuries. Sakura's mother enunciated every word, saturated them with particular meaning. I'm sorry, Ka-san. I must have lost control. Every word Sakura said, however, did not. She was not sorry, she did not lose control. She was the smartest in her class, everything she did nowadays was deliberate. Yes, well, Haruno-san began, until she noticed. Sakura's vision was getting hazy. She was dizzy, she felt sick, she leaned back into the pillows. Sakura, Sakura, resonated through her ears, reverberating on her eardrums. Don't fall asleep, Sakura. The voice, the blurry woman leaning over her. Bitch, Sakura said, quietly, muttered, no one should be able to hear it, the insult was said so quietly. Her eyes began to close. The pink eyelashes rimming the mint green irises imposed on her vision. She didn't see the shocked and offended expression coating her mother's face liberally, like the makeup on an elderly prostitute. So appalling. Sakura was hurt, Kakashi asked, his voice full of concern for his former student. Oh, not really, just some lacerations on her upper arm and maybe a bruise, he. Yamanaka-san, the elder female counterpart, giggled giddily. I should check up on her, Kakashi said thoughtfully. A pity, he would have to break off his date with cute Cashier-chan. She wouldn't really mind, though, he thought. Any girl cheap enough to accept a date with a guy who bought porno from her regularly couldn't have very high standards. Oh, but won't you stay for some tea, Kakashi-kun? You work so hard and, Yamanaka-san frantically cast about for some excuse. Her husband, in the corner patching the broken window with plastic, raised his eyebrow at the suffix. Of course, Kakashi had been the Uchiha Sasuke of his generation. Even the elder women, such as Ino Yamanaka's mother, had giggled over his handsome appearance. Until he had taken to wearing a mask, that is. Then, women of all ages had decided to swoon over his looks and his prodigious skills as a ninja. Why, they had all dreamed of marrying him. In fact, Yamanaka-san was entertaining the thought that Ino could carry out her dream of marriage to Hitaki Kakashi. It wasn't strange, a mother wanting her daughter to carry out her dream from her glory days, and the age difference wasn't so much. It was only 16 years. In the more prominent clans, people were married to their relatives and to individuals old enough to be their grandparents. Maybe some other time, Yamanaka-san. No, but, Kakashi-kun, can't you just, she stuttered. No, Kakashi sighed, I appreciate the offer, Yamanaka-san, but I really must be going. I have previous engagements in addition to checking up on my student. He heaved another sigh. He only had 3 students, after all. I might stop by some other time, then. When I need flowers. Yeah, he ducked out a corner of the window that hadn't been sealed with plastic as of yet. Sometimes, a mother's dreams just weren't meant to come true. Some hours later after his initial outburst, Naruto was still simmering. Not that he wasn't, always. People had a funny way of mistaking an inordinate amount of cheerfulness with offense. Particularly when it was their fault. Naruto decided that he was hungry. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, as he hadn't stopped for lunch after running home. It was nearing 8 o'clock. It had taken him several hours to calm down enough to contemplate eating. Rather pathetic, if you asked him. Sasuke never got that angry. He strode into the kitchen, still slightly angry. So it was with anger that he took out several packs of ramen, and ripped them open. With anger that he took an enormous measuring cup, more like a bowl, and poured the appropriate amount of water in, and heated it up for several minutes. It was with anger that he dumped the contents of the foam cups into an oversized mixing bowl, and poured the water in when it was done. Still stirring the steaming mass, Naruto trekked the 10 steps to the loveseat positioned in front of his TV. He plopped down, and fancied himself a couch potato. Maybe he should quit the whole ninja business. The village didn't want him getting any stronger than he already was, and the idea of the mountains of paperwork that went along with his dream of Hokage wasn't so appealing either. He could just stay at home with his stuff, the stuff he loved. His tattered scrolls, his faded couch, his out-of-date television set, his almost faulty refrigerator. Naruto loved these worthless things. It was because they were worthless that he loved them. No one would try to take them from him. They were some of the clutter that hadn't been taken from him as the victim of cruel pranks or maliciousness. Maybe I should take Iruka-sensei out for ramen, Naruto said aloud, randomly. Completely off topic, ridiculously so. But he should anyway, he needed to get out more. He had already spent too long brooding over why Sasuke was so well liked, and he was starting to pick up characteristics of the jerk. Iruka-sensei gave up so much for Naruto, constantly taking him out and spending time with him, even giving up his reputation at large to help him grow up properly. So sad that it hadn't really worked. Naruto was still loud, annoying, sloppy, whiny, and depressed. Luckily, Iruka-sensei had immunized himself to those qualities, so he could imagine them away. Or he'd have had a hissy fit. Naruto picked up the remote, luckily the batteries weren't dead, and turned on a soap opera. No man was complete without his stories. Ha, bet you'd forgotten that he was sitting in front of his TV. Aw man, brat, I thought you would have picked something good, you know, really good. The demon fox complained. Naruto didn't know why the Kyuubi had gained the sudden ability to complain to him, but he brushed it off as a figment of his imagination. Kami, didn't his imagination know that he didn't order those kinds of channels? He heaved up the gargantuan bowl of ramen and poured a liberal amount into his gaping mouth. Some broth dribbled down his chin and onto the white tee he wore under his customary jacket. Then, Naruto let out a truly fantastic belch. Ew, Bruce, beep you, imagination, Naruto thought. Then he thought about what he wanted to do. What had he to do? Training. What for? And no missions would be assigned to him for a while. He had no real friends, and couldn't burden Iruka-sensei with his constant, clinging presence. Naruto decided after a bit that he would sleep. Teenagers needed lots of sleep, and asleep was when he was happiest. Dream sequence for those of you who are dumbasses. Naruto sat by his window, looking out at the forest where the twilight just barely left enough sunlight to see by. He scratched at the screen with a fingernail, imagined that he could call the forest animals to him, so he would be special. And they came out of the forest, and Naruto was shocked because he had not really thought they would come, but they did, a dozen of them, a baker's dozen. They slunk up to the wall of the building, mewling and calling to Naruto. Naruto dreaded them, in the pit of his stomach, like he knew they wanted to do something to him, something he would not like, something that made his skin itch and crawl. Like they wanted to breed with him, out of him, through him, and Naruto didn't want that. Naruto turned away from the window, nervously, hopefully inconspicuously, and ducked down so the foxes couldn't see him anymore. They couldn't follow him around from the outside, looking through the windows and screen doors, couldn't get in and do that to him. Crouching, Naruto began to run through his crowded house, because everyone he knew, friends and family were there. A party. Running, Naruto was running down a hall in his home. In his dream, his apartment had changed to include parts of the complex in which he lived. In his dreams, the staircases were narrower, and he was in constant danger of falling when he ran up them because they were lower as well. His feet stuck to the floors. Kakashi Otou-san, don't drink that, you'll get alcohol poisoning. Naruto raced up the stairs to where Kakashi, his father, was drinking a non-alcoholic beverage. Beer, maybe, 9th bottle, or 666. Don't drink that. Iruka-san, don't let him, he'll die, don't you care, why are you letting him do that, why oh why? Outside, the plethora of foxes prowled around the house, their eyes gleaming with lust. Naruto spun around, and swung around the banister, to do something, he knew he had to do it. He came back to a staircase, similar to the one from before, wooden planking with a carved banister of the same dark wood as the low-slung narrow steps. Sasuke was sitting on them, a few stairs from the top, and Naruto needed to get up them. Move Sasuke, move. No, Dobi, Dove, love, I won't move, you'll have to get around me. Sasuke reached out his arms as if to embrace Naruto, and Naruto tried to rear back, but felt himself toppling forward, out of his control. His feet and legs were sluggish as he tried to twist out of the way, but it was useless. All Naruto's ministrations earned him was an awkward fall. He crashed into Sasuke's lap, falling on his shoulder and facing the wall, falling off of Sasuke's lap. Ha! Ha! Naruto! You fell, what else would I expect? Sasuke laughed and whispered in Naruto's ear, which turned red, so tomatoey red that it burned. Yada! He pushed himself up and stumbled around Sasuke, up the stairs. They plateaued and Naruto tripped on the last step, nearly falling flat on his face but for his arms which struggled to hold him partially upright. He was weak, he wasn't strong, he acknowledged without remorse. Asuma, holding a bottle of beer, saluted the fallen boy. A number of other lumberjack-like ninja milled about in no formation, socializing and getting in the way. Sakura giggled while curled up in a corner with Ino and Hinata while Rock Lee pranced in a semicircle to serenade them. Naruto stumbled to his feet, across the room, the wooden room. This place, his home, when had it become so like cottage in the woods? When had it gained balcony with steps running down to the ground? He wandered out onto that balcony, planked and boarded over like everything else. He could hear the distant murmur of deep pleasant chatter through the glass doors. Orochimaru laughed, and the foxes howled. Naruto began to run, taking the low steps downward 3 at a time, leaping and jumping in his earnest escape. He reached the ground and ran, across a clearing in the twilight away from the woods with cool autumn air caressing his cheeks until he was running uphill, steeply uphill on a sidewalk. It was the early morning hours, everything was gray but it still seemed as warm as it had been in the wooden house. Some feet away at a cafe along the strip of shops on the hill that Naruto had been running up, Kakashi took a final swig of his non-alcoholic beer and collapsed out of his chair. His neck was swollen, like it would burst. Naruto rushed up to him, feet sticking and legs stumbling. Does anyone have a phone? Call a doctor. Help him, help him. He grabbed the older man by the armpits, began to drag him out of the cafe, down the hill and on the sidewalk. Everyone stared. They looked and stared impassively but sympathetically in that way that makes you sick. Can't you see he's got alcohol poisoning? Don't just stare. Frantic. But we're only an exhibit. Only to be stared at, so why not? Naruto frantically heaved and tugged at Kakashi Otou-san, moved him a few more feet, like he did when he was rearranging his furniture in his room and the dresser was too heavy to move all at once. Iruka-san, help, call the hospital. Why won't you help? Cheery eyes that don't understand, can't comprehend. Anger. He cheated. Naruto, there is no room for cheaters here. Iruka glared, out of character, as if he had one to begin with. Why would he do that? Didn't he know that the whole point was to cheat, that was the only way to win? Iraka. Kakashi hacked up phlegm and died. His head lolled back. Naruto woke up and the foxes howled. In the darkness of the wishing hour, Naruto's eyes snapped open. The lights from the old television flashed, but he didn't know why. The volume was turned down. Naruto rolled onto his side and fell off the couch onto his hands and knees, and the mixing bowl clattered to the ground on the wooden floors and threadbare rugs. A dribble of leftover broth dripped onto the floor. What was that? Naruto gasped. He was still fearful of those foxes, those lustful demon foxes, but he understood his fear now that he could think about it. It was not the foxes, or what they had wanted to do to him, or what Sasuke had been like in his dream or anything else that he was afraid of. It was the consequences. Would the consequences of his being alive be a bloody murder by the villagers? He looked at the clock on the VCR, 3 o'clock a.m. Naruto's eyes hardened, and in the darkness glowed red. They won't kill me. Those damn villagers won't get me. He stood with his muscles tensed, his arms at his sides. No time like the present. He would go to the forest. Go to the edge of Konohagakure and train. All that Naruto did before he left was to change his ratty clothes and gather his weapons. After he left, a tiny brown mouse scavenged the remains of his dinner that was still laying on the floor where it had fallen. 6 o'clock p.m. Before Naruto's scene happens. It was, yet again, blurry when Sakura awoke. And, again, There were blurry shapes hovering above her. But they were different from last time. "Oh, most lovely Sakura-chan, are you all right?" Lee cried, his round eyes filling up with unshed tears, his lower eyelashes standing out more prominently than ever. "Did Sasuke hurt you? Are you injured? I shall, from now on, protect your youthful beauty. If I do not, I will hop around the village perimeter 10 times on my tongue." His hands fisted, his body full of vigor. That's all right, Lee, you don't have to do that. Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? Sakura jumped. She hadn't noticed her former teacher. Kakashi sweated. Wasn't it obvious? Just checking up on my student, Baka. Oh, Sakura said. She felt rather foolish, of course her sensei would be concerned. Kakashi was clingy like that. "Are you all right?" he asked. He obviously wanted to know what happened. "Oh, I'm fine, just lost my temper a little bit, not even hurt." Ha, Sakura fluttered her hands. These two weirdos, by her bed. She would be more upset if she didn't know they were only concerned for her. Even if one was a creepy loving way and one was parental. The door opened and Haruno-san stuck her head in. "Hitaki-san, Rock-san, I have some tea for you." She cut herself off when she saw her daughter, awake. She curtly set the tray down and left. Rock-san. Sounds weird. Sakura blinked once, blinked twice. For all her intellect she could not fathom why her mother was so warm to their guests but so cold to her daughter. In the kitchen of the Yamanaka household, Ino felt her brain get ripped out of her skull. Quite brutally, too. "Ino-kun," Ino's mother sang. Bad things always happened when her mother was singing. Really, horribly, bad things. "Yes, Ka-san," Ino cautiously asked. In these cases, it was best to say as little as possible so that she wouldn't get stuck with some obligation. "You know, I was thinking." "Crap, thinking was bad. Since you're not a kunoichi anymore, you need someone to protect you." "What's your point, Ka-san?" Warning bells were going off in Ino's head. Hell, all over her body, like a belly dancer. "I think you should get a boyfriend. Preferably Hitaki Kakashi-kun." "Hey, Ka-san, I don't want a boyfriend. I'm saving myself for Uchiha-san." Ino completely bypassed the second part of her mother's statement. Until she doubled back. "What? Hitaki-san is way too old for me. I'm not giving up Sasuke for an old geezer." Ino shrieked. How utterly appalling that her mother thought she would consider that. "Ino, don't foolish. You're only young once and anyone with half a brain can see that all that Uchiha boy has going for him is looks. Besides, I know myself that Kakashi-kun is just as handsome as that boy anyway, beneath his mask." Yamanaka-san scolded. But, Ino stuttered. How could she compete with that? Sasuke did have the personality of a snow pea. Just think on it for a bit. You'll see that I'm right. The older woman smiled gently and patted Ino on the back. Behind his newspaper, Ino's Otou-san snorted, a habit he had come to embrace after years of living with his wife. That woman was so conniving that their conniving little daughter couldn't figure it out. Sasuke wrenched his eyes open. Well, perhaps not wrenched. Wrenched implied effort, a thing not employed by Sasuke when he opened his eyes. Rather, they drifted open quickly, more of a snap. He found himself laying on Itachi's bed again, a habit he had tried to break at first but now accepted, even encouraged. Sasuke imagined that he was Itachi, the prodigy, the strongest. Then he imagined dying, so that Itachi would die, feel that Sasuke Ototo wanted him to die. Those cursed Mangekyo Sharingan would burn and dry and wither so Sasuke could laugh at the helpless Itachi. Laugh while he stood over him, laugh while Itachi was blind and his empty eye sockets bled and bled and bled. So that Sasuke could get over Itachi. Sasuke felt himself growing ever closer to Itachi's level. Every minute he spent in Itachi's room was spent analyzing how Itachi thought, absorbing his brutal brilliance, the power radiating from every object enveloping him. Soaking in, so it could never get away. Never. He looked out the window, where the sun shone in blood red. But not the crimson of the fluid that soaked the grounds where Sasuke lived. This red was different, deeper, redder, angrier. Had this driven Itachi mad in his quest for power? No matter. Sasuke decided that he was hungry. At present the inner workings of Itachi's mind were inconsequential. Sasuke needed to plan, to stake out potential candidates to continue the Uchiha line. The woman couldn't be a kunoichi. The muscles that every ninja possessed were not an ideal place to grow a baby, Sasuke thought as he traveled to the kitchen. He passed a particularly large splattered on the ground. And walls, all encompassing. He continued in his mind. Who did he know that could possibly carry out this mission? A person who kept quiet, a healthy girl. Who did Sasuke know that wasn't a ninja? The only people he associated with were ninja. The only women he knew were kunoichis, either from the Genin Academy or from missions. He arrived at the kitchen, walked over to the cupboard, then the refrigerator, and surveyed the counters. It appeared that Sasuke would have to go shopping soon. Instead, he hauled out the large phone book. The one that was slightly outdated. By 8 years. Dialing a number on the old but not extremely old telephone, Sasuke mulled over his options. Did he want chicken, or beef? When the phone was picked up, Sasuke immediately ordered curry, and promptly after that, demanded that the person who delivered it be a male. And hung up. The person on the other end of the line sighed. When would the young Uchiha-sama realize that this was not an order-out restaurant? He turned to another employee at the accounting firm. Call Little Princess Curry and set an order for Sasuke Uchiha. The usual. The associate sighed exasperatedly. He really needs to get a new phone book. And to stop ordering out so much. He's gonna get fat. Back in the kitchen, Sasuke wondered why the delivery people weren't afraid to come to the Uchiha compound, with the red stains not faded by age. The answer was this: the stains had not faded, as they had never been there. Uchiha Itachi was not so careless as to leave evidence to the murders for Sasuke to steal himself with. And Sasuke, the Red Room didn't drive Itachi mad. It won't drive you to insane power either. Your obsession will. 3:30 a.m. Wishing hour, in the forest. Naruto grinned and another tree shattered. If he kept this up, someone, a Junin on his rounds, perhaps, was bound to notice. Certainly in the morning questions would be asked about the brand new clearing. He would need to move his escapades to a different location. No one could know that he suspected them. Naruto would go searching tomorrow night. Monsters in the forest. Ba-da-da-da-da-datum. Naruto woke for the second time. Instead of yawning, as one would expect, he lay still with his eyes still closed, a satisfied smile adorning his lips, curling them like a satisfied kitten. Or maybe that was just the whisker marks. He heard a bird twittering outside his window and opened his eyes to glare. He really hated birds, and had no idea why people found their song so amusing. It clearly wasn't. It sounded just like Sasuke Tem's voice in his stupid Chidori. Chi. Do-re. It was nearly noon by now. Naruto had trained until 4:30 earlier this morning, at the risk of being discovered by some early rising Junin. Maeda Guy had come dangerously close in Naruto's estimation, but no matter, as the eccentric Junin only encouraged training. He wouldn't mention Naruto's escapades to anyone dangerous even if he had noticed. Chi. Sasuke. The brunette stiffened imperceptibly. He stood in silence, like he hadn't noticed. Last time I checked, you weren't deaf, Sasuke, and your Sharingan hasn't caused you to go blind yet, either. I know you know I'm here. Kakashi reprimanded, though it wouldn't be obvious to one who didn't know him. You're right, sensei. Sasuke twisted his neck to face his Junin instructor and smirked. I know what you're thinking. Flat, blatant, really. Itachi. That's what you think about, every day, every second, even when you sleep. Isn't he? Kakashi's accusing voice ground into Sasuke's skull. Quote. You want power. So, Sasuke was feeling like the victim of 20 questions. Only they weren't really questions at all. Orochimaru doesn't have it. You've been thinking about him, too, haven't you? Okay. Not only not questions, blazing conspicuous assumptions. Sasuke was silent again. Where the hell did he come up with that? You're allowed to talk too, you know, Sasuke. Okay, then, Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke deigned to clear his throat. Why do you think that, he contemplated, that I would consider Orochimaru? You tell me, Sasuke. Damn it. When did that good-for-nothing sensei gain his beeping parental personality? Where did he get off having one in the first place? Perhaps, he began sarcastically, perhaps it's because he's a creepy freak who licks me. Or it may be the fact that he wants to take over my body. But I think the real selling point would be that Orochimaru is weaker than Itachi. Yay, that must be it, Kakashi no Baka. Sasuke finished scathingly. He wanted to, uncharacteristically, smack the back of his former sensei's annoying head. Oh, hadn't thought of that. Kakashi chuckled nervously. Oh, for the beeping love of Kami-sama, why didn't I consider those? Stupid. Sasuke half growled, half grunted his discontent. Wanna go out for some lunch, Sasuke? Nervous, Kakashi-sensei. Don't you know that wild animals can smell nervousness? Kakashi was reminded of his favorite song. So he started to hum it to himself, sing the lyrics in his head. You and me baby ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. This time, Sasuke growled for real, and took a menacing step towards Kakashi. Haha. I just remembered, I'm late, for a very important date. Kakashi slapped his hands in a seal and poofed away. And wondered, maybe that cashier from the other day would be willing to go out to lunch with him. Sakura walked down the hallway from her room, ready to forage for lunch. That morning, she had gone downstairs for breakfast, and found her mother already there, preparing a meal for her husband. She had greeted both parents with her usual cheer, but only received half the response. Her mother, it appeared, was still giving her the cold shoulder. Over what exactly, she knew not. Hopefully by now at least, her mother would be gone to shop for tonight's dinner. It would be safe to enter the kitchen, free of awkwardness. It was to silence that the pink-haired Not Wonder stepped onto the cool kitchen floor. No one was home now, she was sure of it. Sakura padded over to the fridge and pulled out an assortment of healthy foods. Carbohydrates, in case she got a mission right away. She would be heading over to the mission office right after she ate. Carefully choosing the less fatty of the bunch, she wouldn't want to get fat, she prepared her quick meal and elegantly spooned it into her mouth. Until what had remained was gone. Sakura walked to the door after cleaning up her mess, as if there had been one, and pulled on her ninja sandals. She was looking forward to whatever Tsunade-sensei had planned for her. 3 hours later, Sakura decided that she hated her beautiful role model. She flinched when a grubby hand yanked on a short pink lock of hair. Quit it, brat, she grunted. Honestly, grunted. A lady such as herself grunted. And her loathing of the current Hokage soared like a bird, an eagle, a hawk. Sakura-san. One child wheedled. Stop being a poopy head. Poopy head, indeed. What did you call me, brat? Sakura clenched her fist and bared it at the offending child. Poopy head. Sakura-san is a meanie. Meanie, the others mimicked. Several veins stood out prominently on Sakura's large forehead. They throbbed, like they would burst. Roar. Her patience snapped, and she roared like a dinosaur, advancing on the insulting culprits. The children cowered in the shadow of the fearsome beast. It was hovering, towering, salivating like it would eat them, boogeyman. It hadn't even noticed the gum in its hair yet. It is referring to the pink-headed beast, Sakura Poopy Head. Ino was out walking, a habit she had adopted since her mother had adopted the fantasy in which her daughter married her own crush. At present, it was dusk, after dinner. Dinner with her parents. Dinner with her mother. Any time spent in the house was frustrating or hellish. A mother's pestering was only tolerable for so long, until the prompting became unbearable. That her mother was suggesting cereal tasted better when married to an older man was simply preposterous. And Ino was beginning to become afraid. Her mother very well might force her into an arranged marriage. Her father certainly wasn't doing anything about the situation. Konoha had no laws enforcing free will when it came to marriage. Ino would have no say. All her mother had to do was get Kakashi-san to agree. Then it would be over for Ino. Marrying a gray-haired fuddy-duddy, no matter how handsome or rich he was not Ino's idea of a cup of tea. Lost in thought, Ino had walked into a tree. A big one, with scratchy bark that had already turned her cheek and forehead an unsightly red, as Ino surveyed the damage through a compact mirror. Good thing she was in the forest. No one would see this. Her eyes welled up with tears. The pressure, it was too much, too much, too much, too much. It weighed on her mind, her skull, the back of her head pressing till she thought she would faint. Ino looked in the compact again, and promptly burst into tears. The scrape, the scratches, they were swelling into white welts above the skin. Perfect, perfect, perfect. She leaned against the tree that had started her off, her back to it, and slid down. All she achieved was a splinter in her arm. Ino began to laugh hysterically and re-stood abruptly. And her laughter was punctuated by hiccups. Her skirt was covered in dirt and grass stains. Her new, white skirt. Pure snow white, tainted by dirty grass and bark and soil. Soiled. Ino tilted her head back against the tree trunk, exposing her throat. The top of her head ached from being pressed so hard against the wood, but she didn't move. She stood still like that for several moments, tears still streaming down her cheeks and throat and chest occasionally. Ino idly thought that they tickled, and she hated herself for crying when she wasn't supposed to. She wasn't used to be shinobi. She kept giggling throughout the whole ordeal of listing everything about herself and her life that she loathed, wished could be better. My cowlick, ugly welts, I have the worst luck. My mom, my parents. My hair, my eyes. My clothes, who I am. The way I grew up. The way I act. How I can't get anyone to notice me for me mememem. Why doesn't anyone like me? They all lied. They don't, they only pretended. Sasuke doesn't love me, he doesn't love anyone, so why do I want to love him? Bandwagon, I hate that. Ino hiccuped and stopped laughing, and thinking how childish her complaints were. She focused her eyes on the orange autumn light reflecting through the leaves of the tree. She played through her tears, focusing, unfocusing, in out, in out. She eventually heard a noise. It didn't come suddenly, quite the contrary, it got louder gradually, but not too loud. If Ino hadn't been entirely silent in her thoughts, she wouldn't have heard it. Thump, thud, crash, snap, crackle, pop, banging. What was it? Dull roar, like a dinosaur, a demon, a monster. Coming closer, ever closer. What is it? There are demons in the forest. There are, they weren't just stories to make the children behave. Help, help, don't scream, Ino, don't scream. Shinobi never reveal their emotions. Ino crashed through the forest. Branches, brambles, briars, scratched at her feet, her ankles, her calves. A thorn tore at her skirt. Now there was a hole. Right down the left side. Deeper and deeper into the forest she ran, until her softened body could run no more. No more crashes, no more booms. All she could hear was the dim sound of nature. Anue. Ino whimpered and leaned against a tree. Her hands scraped against the harsh bark, but she didn't care, even if in the frigid air the scrapes would burn and dry out her skin. Shivering, she pressed her whole weight against it, her clothes catching on the bark as she slowly slid down to kneel on the ground. Why was she weak? She had to quit, she couldn't do it. Some dried leaves rustled high in the trees, and the wind whistled through the navy blue sky. A perfect night for spooks. Like the one from before. Coward girl, girly. Ino brought her knees up to her chest, keeping one arm and shoulder braced against the sturdy tree. She felt dizzy, nauseous, and pressed her forehead to her knees, chin to chest, the other arm wrapped securely around her folded legs. Uawa. No matter what, she couldn't stop herself from whimpering. If she did that, she wouldn't know she was there, no one would care, she needed to reassure herself of it. How perverse, to reassure yourself that you exist when you most likely don't. Squinching her eyes together, Ino compressed her body further. Ino-san. Nay. Ino twitched. She recognized that voice. Leaves whispered in the treetops. Sasuke. Sasuke was here. It didn't occur to Ino to ask why Sasuke was there. He just was. Training, probably. Ino stuttered and blushed, uncomfortably aware of her appearance. Scratches on her face and arms, dirtied, soiled and ripped clothes, her eyes puffy and nose running. Sasuke. San, she added as an afterthought. She ducked her face down. She could, at least, retain some semblance of dignity. Her face shifted back when a hand was stuck in front of it. In that insensitive way Sasuke had. That way he had always been, only more sincere than his child self had. Ino hesitated and took the proffered hand. It was warm, not icy like Sasuke's heart. She looked shyly up, to see that she was doing right, interpreting his actions correctly. Coal black eyes stared down at her, and looked away roughly. He was proud, after all. This was what Sasuke could do, at first. Ino could feel her heart melting. He was, like a little boy. Bashful, unsure. Gripping the rip in her skirt, Ino stood. It felt so picturesque, Sasuke rescuing her like this, in the nighttime. She couldn't hear it pounding away at the forest anymore. Blushing, Ino followed behind Sasuke, her hand still clasped in his. Sasuke led, because he always knew where to go. Ino wasn't a shinobi. Far away, where Ino and Sasuke couldn't hear, Naruto pounded away at the trees, making his way to his new abode. A manic grin adorned his face. Soon, Konoha, you won't be able to get me. The meat counter. Naruto trained. Hard. Very hard he trained. Dawn to dusk. Not really. Naruto trained for 2 hours every day, in the daylight. But no more. To train any more than that would arouse suspicion, so Naruto only trained as much as he had previously, although, recently, he had been slacking of a bit. Only a bit, though. Honestly, you people, haven't you figured it out? Don't you get it? The real training, it was, to not be found out. So every night under the cover of darkness, Naruto snuck away. He snuck away to a little cave, that not so little, not too large cave, and trained. Trained his other special training. To not be found out when he did his other special training was hard. Nay, difficult. The first time he had been found out, Naruto had been forced to feign sleep, like sleepwalking. One might ask, why wouldn't a skilled shinobi realize that the suspect was faking? If you did, you might be considered, well, stupid. Of course, Naruto is a shinobi too, and while he might not be top-notch, well, not yet, at least, he was no lazy Lou either. It was quite simple for him to put to use his top-notch training from Ero Sanin and Kakashi-sensei. Hey, just because he wasn't top-notch didn't mean his training wasn't, and tricked the Junin into believing he had only been sleepwalking. It was only a pity that Naruto had to pivot on his heel and head on home for his story to be plausible, though. Naruto had exploited his utmost skills to avoid other incidences. Extra training, no. Yes it was. At any rate, Naruto traveled every night to that cave, training himself in stealth and technique, to do that Osu special training he had become so fond of. I bet you wish you knew what that special training was. I bet you all think it's something really cheesy, really lame. Well, it doesn't matter, you don't get to know, anyway. You're only one of those annoying extra personalities Naruto has locked away in his head. You're the really bitchy one, too. Ino hummed merrily as she puttered around the kitchen. Today, she had gotten up extra early. She just felt like making breakfast. Something homey, domestical. Like practice. Today, she wasn't even worried about her mother or her weak father. Nothing could pierce her steel hard shell today. Today, she felt like a turtle. A much-loved turtle. Ino-kun. Ah, a stammering voice. That could only mean one thing. Why did you? Ino's mother stood in the doorway, surveying the vast array of dishes and delicacies. Why, hello, Ka-san. Would you care for some breakfast? Ino whipped around, holding a platter of pancakes and a smile. The creepy kind of smile, the kind that makes you want to hurl. This is, her mother stammered again. Ino stood and grinned expectantly. Breakfast, are you hungry? Ino's mother didn't reply. She stumbled gracelessly over to the refrigerator, the cupboards. Empty. You used all of our food. Ino frowned. You could be a little more appreciative, you know, and not burst my bubble. Bubble burster. When are we going to eat all of this? The older woman swiveled and stared dazedly at the carpeted table and counters. They steamed slightly, and the mixed aromas made her feel ill. Ino's mother didn't think that they could afford Ino going through a phase this expensive. And pointless. This isn't a dream, it's a flashback. Flashback. How lame. Ino was painfully aware of the warm hand in hers. Warm, not cold, like his face. Don't shoot me with those eyes, Sasuke, they bore through my skull. She followed barely a centimeter behind him, centimeters. Deferent, like a good wife should be. Even if she wasn't yet. Yet. Only yet. Sasuke, she wanted to say. To make him look at her, if only for a moment. He did. He turned and looked at her, with those bottomless black eyes. Not obsidian, not that much depth. Sasuke's eyes were like a shark's, empty and full at the same time, hard and soft, flat. Like you could just stick your finger in and it would keep on going and not touch anything. The cold eyes made Ino feel warm. It was like, he could read her mind, like he knew she wanted him to look. Even if she didn't want him to see her like this. She could hear him thinking. Ino, Ino, he thought her name. She could see it in his eyes that were staring into her own. Blank blue gazing into blank black. Except when they were blood red. Ino hadn't seen that yet, had she? No, she couldn't until later. Not until it was consummated. Not that Sasuke was worried, or anything. But he was when she looked away. She was looking behind him. She was looking at the door. They were at her house. Flower shop. The window was still patched over with plastic. God, she was looking at him again. Not that Sasuke needed reassurance. He was the oh-so-confident Uchiha spawn. And the oh-so-confident Uchiha spawn noticed that the young lady he was escorting was blushing, and looking at him through her blonde lashes. Sasuke decided that Yamanaka Ino wasn't such a bad choice. He leaned forward and whispered in her ear. It turned a faint shell pink shade darker than her pale skin color. It was dreamlike, the way he almost drifted back, his lips barely brushing her cheek as he stepped away. Ino felt a cool breath of air caress her face in Sasuke's warm absence. Sasuke began to walk away and their hands slipped apart. Ino felt like a high school girl from shoujo anime, where the girl comes home from the perfect date and shares a romantic moment with the boy, although Sasuke is nearly a man by now, on her doorstep. Certainly her heart was fluttering like it was supposed to. This was the part where a spark was supposed to ignite between their sweetly parting fingers. Sakura blossoms falling dramatically like tears in an allusion to their namesake. Ino imagined there was an unspoken promise that this would not be the last time Sasuke would escort her, spend special moments with her. It wouldn't be. As Sasuke faded away in a shinobi-esque fashion he felt his head reeling. She would be the one, more pros than cons. He weighed them, over and over, to make sure he wasn't making a mistake. He didn't want to become too attached in case he was wrong. Already, he was feeling a husbandly affection, traditional affliction between husband and child-bearer. Yamanaka Ino was perfect. Neji stoically appraised the selection of meats on display. Tapping the glass, he inclined his head at the traditionally beefy man holding the carving knife. The man rolled up his sleeves, revealing bulky forearms, and prepared to slice of a prime cut of the meat. Oh, Hyuga-sama, you don't really want that piece, do you? A sweet voice resonated behind him. Neji and the beefy man seized up in unison. Neji, because he was unaccustomed to being addressed in such a simpering manner, the butcher because he recognized that voice. Hyuga-sama was in for some unpleasantness if he didn't yield to the other customer. Neji pivoted on his heel. The Byakugan would be a little extreme to use in a supermarket and met the eyes of the obeisant individual to the back of him. Yamanaka-san. Scarier than her daughter. Crapola. Yamanaka-sama. He inclined his head to her as well. How may I be of assistance? Oh so polite, or she might eat you, Neji ni. Well, the older woman began in that condescending way women have, when they try to be sugar sweet. I was just, you see, I need that particular ingredient. I'm having a very special guest to dinner tonight. Of course, if you need it, I could always have a change of menu. She trailed off. The flummoxed butcher looked at the raw meat hefted in his large paw. Hadn't she just bought several pounds of this last week? Neji was fuddled as well. He never knew how to deal with women like this. He was to remain aloof, his only real contact with women to be platonic, as with Tenten, until his uncle arranged a marriage of convenience for him. Certainly, Yamanaka-sama, it would be unpardonably rude of me to deny a lady. The blonde woman smiled that horribly sweet smile of hers again. Neji's heart caught, and he idly wondered what he would get to replace the main family's dinner tonight. The butcher cut, weighed and packaged the meat, handing it to Yamanaka-san in a sterile plastic bag. With one last smile and a goodbye, she swayed towards the other's aisles to select ingredients to replace the ones eradicated by her trial of a daughter that morning. Her very special guest needed only the most special ingredients, after all. Neji turned back to the meat counter and continued to contemplate. Finally, and with an inward sigh, he selected another variety. This would have to do. Damn, now he had to reorganize his whole menu as well. How demeaning that one with such an advanced bloodline be demoted to fixing the family dinner. No, not only cooking, shopping in a common marketplace. Such a plebeian task was meant to be designated to the servants. But no, Hyuga Hiyashi-sama insisted that he fix the meal for the main family reunion. Just because he was a better chef than the other ones up for hire. How unintelligent, and totally not fair. Neji was still an angsty teenager, even if he acted so anal all of the time. He had things he wanted to do too, damn it. Neji picked up the white and plastic package and left to pick up a new shaker of paprika. They had run out in all of the kitchens at once. What were the odds? Hefting the other odds and ends that he needed into the cart, Neji made his way to the checkout register. Paid with the Hyuga official credit card. Grabbed the plastic bags the Hyugas don't recycle and left through the sliding doors. And promptly ran into Naruto. Ohio. Neji, sorry about that. It took all of Neji's super advanced ninja skills not to drop the bags he was carrying. Need some help? Ah, no, Naruto-kun, Neji started. PSSH, that's way too many packages, come on, I'll help you carry them home. The blonde maid to receive several of the many bags clutched to the other boy's chest. Naruto-kun, the main family will be there, it's not a good idea. Neji held back the plastic bags labeled, Kanoka Grocer. They were starting to hurt his hands and get slippery with sweat. Sweaty palms, like Naruto. He had obviously come from training not long ago. His hair was slightly damp and he had that smell that you got after a lot of exercise, when you didn't precisely stink yet. Naruto had paused to consider. What did Neji mean? The main. A light bulb lit upon his light head. Ooh, I see, Neji, I completely understand, Naruto said in his chilling imitation of the local busybodies. Naruto, if it were any other day, but this is a very important date to Hiyashi-sama. Naruto raised his hands as if in surrender. He knew, didn't hold it against Neji. Like I said, no problem, nay. Some other time, Neji. He turned and began an energetic jog back to his downtrodden apartment. Neji stood and dispassionately looked after the blonde. The only person besides Naruto that would run after training was Rock Lee. Well, made a guy as well, he supposed. Neji decided that he wouldn't gain anything by standing and evoking an emotional scene by staring after the much-mocked Naruto. He turned and in a steady gait, walked towards the Hyuga manse, occasionally shifting the slippery, sweaty handles of the bags from hand to hand. Sasuke sat in the gray room waiting for the red sun to bathe him in blood. From his position on the bed, he could see the entire room. Well, except for the monster under the bed. Or his feet. Sasuke hated feet, the way they looked, how the toes could wiggle, how they got clammy whenever it was rainy or cold. They almost always looked so deformed. Why, oh why, did the ninja sandals have to show the toes? He was sitting in the middle, with his knees drawn up to his chest, his toes gripping the blankets in an attempt to stay warm. Sasuke was wearing socks on his feet, not the kind that were loose and slipped around. But his feet were still cold and clammy. The autumn air made the floors cold and his feet coated in a cold sweat. Super duper gross. Sasuke had decided, and there was nothing else to it. Just more planning. And preparing the plan. And putting the plan into action. As well as maintaining the plan once it was started. Then beginning the other multitude of plans he had planned. And maintaining those plans. You know what? Sasuke was growing rather accustomed to planning and plotting. Maybe the spotless gray room really was working its magic. It made him feel mischievous, evil, like Itachi was. But Sasuke would never ever be evil. Ino was feeling apprehensive. Like those people in horror movies, who are so sure nothing bad can happen, but are still wary and sardonic anyway, because to act like anything else would be stupid. Ino could swear she heard elevator music playing in the background. Oh wait, it was her mother's guest entertaining music. It was jokingly mocked between her and her father. And guest entertaining music could only mean one thing. A guest. And indeed a guest was here, sitting directly across the table from her, in fact. Ino felt the bottom of her stomach drop away and be replaced with an absolute feeling of uselessness, the eternal question that worms its way through the mind of many a teenager all but screaming, "Why me?" Go. Go 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 away, pronounced like bobobo bobo bobo. Shut up y'all losers. Note. The opening scene takes place on the same day as the previous chapter. Everything else, let's just say it's the day after that. Ino sat in her chair, her heart thumping. Aneurysm. She stiffly lifted her chopsticks and a vegetable made its solemn way towards her mouth. The music tinkled in the background. Delicious, as expected, Yamanaka-san, Kakashi mentioned. At least half of his food had disappeared from his plate. Not once had any of them seen his mouth. Oh, it's not so much. Ino's mother graciously accepted with a titter. Her eyes glinted maliciously at her daughter. Here, eat some more, Kakashi-kun, she said as she handed him a platter. I must disagree, Kakashi objected. It is. Her mother tittered again. Glint. Does he know why he's here? Does he want to? Ino felt dead, hopeless, bottomless. She ate another bite. Chomp. Your daughter's very well behaved, Yamanaka, he commented to her father. Ino's heart clamped up. Yes, some of the time she is, Chu-san aloud. Oh, you, the Okawa-san interjected in a condescending way. Kakashi-kun, you should try her cooking, it's so enthusiastic. Just this morning she baked the most delic cinnamon buns I've had in years and I never even knew she had such an affinity for the kitchen. An affinity for the kitchen. For Sasuke, not Hataki-san. Why don't I bring some out with dessert? Kakashi consented with a small inclination of his head. I'm looking forward to this, Ino-san. I haven't had a good cinnamon bun in a while. You could tell he was smiling. You couldn't see it, but you could tell it was there. Hi, Hataki-san, I hope you're not disappointed. Ino replied meekly. She didn't have the confidence to say anything more. Please, call me Kakashi like everyone else. You know, Naruto's taken to calling me Ero-sensei lately, he said with another one of those grins that you couldn't see. Ino's father snorted into his plate, his place of refuge, at hearing such talk at the dinner table. Dearest, finish your dinner please, the older woman prodded. Her husband glared briefly at her. So, Kakashi-kun didn't get yelled at for inappropriate table talk but he did for not eating fast enough. You don't want to gain weight, you know. She sing-songed. Oh, it was on, Hataki Kakashi. He gave up his plate in the end, of course. In the end, the man always bent to the woman's whim. Her every desire. She called the shots. Besides, she was scary. Ino, why don't you help me in the kitchen? Sweetly called. Sinuous voice. Hi, Okawa-san. Ino stood and retrieved her still half-full plate. Her mother made quite the show of gathering Otou-san's dishes and utensils. Ino-chan, my hands are full, will you be a sweetling and get Kakashi-kun's plates? That voice EU. Of course, Ka-san, Ino countered in a voice just as sickeningly Ario's. She haltingly traversed the room to get to the other side of the table. Where that bastard was. Here, Ino-san, Kakashi handed the plates to her. How nice, not making her reach around. Thank you, for taking away the dirty dishes. He was always so polite. Well, not that it mattered. Ino walked into the kitchen. Her mother was already there, putting the dishes in the sink. We'll take care of these later, Ino-kun, she intoned, suddenly businesslike. Anyway, the sweet voice was back. Tell me, what do you think of Kakashi-kun? He's very polite, Ino stated shortly. Oh, come on, you can tell me, woman to woman. Her mother sneered and walked past her to the refrigerator. Ino felt claustrophobic. He's very nice. RRRREEEEAAALLYYY. The word seemed to roll off her tongue in waves. Yes, really, nice. Ino felt dizzy, like the kitchen was swaying, rolling on rolling pins. Well, he is, and so much more. Ino's mother seemed to suddenly back off, leaning against the counter, sighing like a schoolgirl. Well, now that I've got my dear daughter's opinion. She's gotten way too close to that Uchiha boy, and him to her. Who ever heard of him walking a girl home? I don't trust him. Let's take out dessert. Okay, what a freak. Done done done. The blondes walked into the room. Well, one walked and one stalked. But both exuded a ladylike, calming presence. Each carried a platter heaped with sweets. They sat, they ate, they made small talk. Ino felt ill again, that recurring nausea from in the kitchen. She excused herself. She went to bed. She thought about Sasuke, and how her chances of being with him seemed to be increasing and decreasing at the same time. She fell asleep. Kakashi sat with the elder Yamanakas in the parlor. Talked about profession, the neighbors, business. And Ino was eventually brought up. She's a very well-behaved girl, you know, the woman said offhandedly. Pick up the hint, do it, Kakashi-kun. Indeed she is, Yamanaka-san, and a good cook as well. The admission sent her heart leaping. You know, she had some rather positive things to say about you as well, Kakashi-kun. Glint. Oh, did she now? The quiet husband sat in the background, not seeing himself fit to enter this discussion. Yet, what would be the outcome of this dangerous encounter? Why yes, I can't blame her. You're quite impressive. Pile on the compliments, why don't you, Yamanaka-san? I don't want to seem rude, but, will you get to the point? Please, Kakashi lazily asked, like he didn't already know the answer. The slight woman stiffened, and relaxed. She was a kunoichi, after all. And everyone knew that a skilled kunoichi is much more skilled in the arts of deception than a normal shinobi. Well, you see, Kakashi-kun, you're getting rather old, don't you think? Her chin in her hands, her eyes sliding to the side. Utterly nonchalant. I think I'm still younger than you, Yamanaka-san. Ooh, booern. Why, well, maybe a kunoichi wasn't more skilled all the time. The quiet husband stood up and restrained her. You are being a little presumptuous, dear, he whispered into her ear. Gradually, her breathing calmed. But her temper didn't. Ino had to get her contrariness from someone, didn't she? Well, as the host I suppose I am obligated to forgive you on account of my rudeness. Kakashi-kun. She composed herself, caking her face with a chilling smile. Kakashi murmured. He wouldn't apologize. Not when he didn't think he was wrong. Anyway, as I was saying, you have never appeared to show much interest in dating beyond those books you're notorious for reading. And it will get harder and harder to find a woman young enough to bear an heir for you as you get on in years. She took a stabilizing breath. I myself am worried about the state of my daughter's love life. I believe she has spent far too many years pining after that former student of yours. I see, he did. He had seen far before she had thought of it. I know you've drawn your own conclusions, Kakashi-kun. I won't insult myself by saying what I want you to do out loud. She waited on bated breath. I don't like the circumstances, Yamanaka-san, but I won't disagree with you. I'll leave it to you to make any agreements with your daughter. She really is a fine young woman. The scarecrow stood. Goodbye, Yamanaka-san. I await your summons. He finished with a slightly sarcastic au revoir. More respectfully, he said goodbye to her male counterpart, by way of a nod. The male Yamanaka accepted the acknowledgement with a nod of his own. The two men formed a bond of sorts. One feared the woman, the other rivaled her tenacity. Anu saw. Shikamaru sighed. Anytime, he heard that voice, that could only mean one person. Hello, Naruto. You better not be troublesome. Shikamaru sighed again, as was his custom. Hey, that hurts, Shikamaru. I wasn't going to bother you anyway, I'm too busy. Naruto was running by at that point. Shikamaru opened one eye in confusion. They had been closed before. Everyone knows that proper sighing technique requires closed eyes. Busy. You've been even more of a bum than me lately, Naruto. The blonde spun on his heel and did the nice guy pose. Yeah, well, the bug crawled out of my butt, so I can see what an absolute tem I've been lately. I'm gonna be Hokage. Shikamaru felt happy for his friend. He had crawled out of his depression, finally. But Shikamaru's expression didn't change. Not one bit. Keep telling yourself that, loudmouth. Just a bit of friendly encouragement for the road. Ha, I will, you lazy ass. Naruto knew what Shikamaru really meant. That lazy-ass genius always seemed to talk in code for some reason. Naruto spun around a few more times in his eagerness to return to his substandard apartment, earning a few swirly eyes in the process. Shikamaru closed his one open eye. If he had been Sasuke, that bastard, he would have insulted Naruto, called him Dobi. But he wasn't, so he didn't. The blonde completed his spin and made his way, ninja style, to his flat. Hee, ninja style, that sounds kind of kinky, like doggy or kitty style. Forget I said that. Well, not really ninja style, all the way. Once he was out of sight, Naruto pounded his feet into the ground, pumping his arms and his upper torso twisting. Like in a manga, a tragic manga. The boy just broke up with the girl, insensitive like that, so she runs away as fast as she can, her head lowered so no one can see her cry. But Naruto wasn't crying. No, he was quite happy. Tonight was the night. God, I'm paced in her office all that sunny fall afternoon. The leaves on the trees were golden and red. The leaves in the streets were too. But the leaves in the gutters were brown and murky from being trampled by carts and having their juices siphoned out of them to mix with the dry parts. In the afternoon, when the sun shone just right, everything basked in a golden glow, ricocheting off of the desk heaped high with papers and the walls and the countless cabinets stuffed to bursting with files and traditional scrolls just for show. As she paced, she contemplated. Was it a wise idea? What would come of it? How would the villagers react? Oh, they would be dismayed, terrified. That, at least, was a given. But would they actually do anything, was the real question. 4 years ago, at the Chunin exams, he had come to the village and wreaked havoc. Then, he had not been so well known outside of his own village. Since, liaisons with Sunagaku had come to a favorable outcome, an alliance, both villages united in their hatred of Orochimaru and his Sound Village. Sabaku no Gaara hadn't been to Konoha since that time, however. He hadn't been the Kazekage, either. But now, everyone knew that he had been a Jinchuriki, SP. The Kazekage's story had traveled far and wide throughout Konohagakure, so everyone knew of the bloodthirsty priest that had been locked inside of him. They had heard of the countless murders performed by him in cold blood. They had seen him maul the persevering Rock Lee. And now, they knew he was without his main source of protection. Since Shukaku had been removed from inside of Gaara, he had been substantially weaker. Still a powerful and skilled shinobi, with full faculties regarding his sand just you, but weaker non-Hellas. No super chakra. Even though he was empty now, would the villagers still hate him? It would be up to Tsunade to protect her younger equal from the condescending punishment of the villagers. Those unforgiving, harsh villagers. She looked out the window. It was dark. Sakura sat on her bed, staring at the newspaper in front of her. She bit her bottom lip, heaved another sigh and circled an ad with a red pen. Ever since she had graduated from the Genin Academy, all of her pens had been of red ink, to match what she called her fiery passion. But mark her, it was not a fiery passion of youth. Good beeping Kami, it was not a youthful passion. She pushed herself back and eyed the results of the last half-hour's toil. 7. Like her team. Was this symbolic, or something? Would she have 7 children? Would they only live to be 7? Would she, God forbid, only be married for 7 years, for whatever reason? But, these 7 seemed the most promising. Sure, she had never actually checked out the neighborhoods where some of them were located, but at prices like that, they couldn't be too bad. Sakura estimated that if she kept up a steady stream of C and B class missions instead of the erratic schedule she had followed previously, she would be able to live quite comfortably. Pulling out a map from one of the books that littered the shelves of her room, Sakura began to circle the locations of her 7 destinations. She only wished that she could be going directly from her home to Sasuke's. Sometime before. You don't really need to know when, do you? Sakura crept into the house quietly, fresh from a challenging mission. Escorting. Bandits. Blood. So much blood on her hands, seeping into her roots, blood-red pink hair. She needs to go. I can't stand her. Angry voice, appalled voice. Like Sakura was. I hate her. You hate your daughter. You really hate your daughter. She hates me. An agonized breath. She hates me back. She doesn't really. The husband was comforting, consoling, because inside he knew what he said wasn't true. Oh, the pink-haired woman cried hysterically, oh, she doesn't do that around you, though, does she? Daddy's perfect little angel, but to me, she's like a hellhound. I hate Okaz-san. Okaz-san's a bitch. I don't need Okaz-san because she's a useless idiot. Her pink-haired husband didn't respond. Nothing he could say would make the pain better. Sakura saw his thoughts revolving through his forehead. Because he wasn't abused, and the wifey was. She's so much like her. My sister. You know, the one who always insulted me, made me cry. You're useless, pathetic Kunoichi, can't do anything. Why would he want to marry you anyway? Pushed me down in the mud. The ranting degenerated into gasps. She. All right, she'll leave. The statement contained none of the flatness Sakura thought it should have. Still a memory. Sakura had left after her father's response. Came back later. She knew that her father knew she had been there, listening. But he let her leave, to give his wife a chance to compose herself. In the end, his wife would always come out on top. She stepped quietly into the front entry, hoping not to be too loud. Climbing through the window would be beneath her. But they were still there. In the parlor. Sakura, we would like to have a word with you, her father said. Sakura schooled her face into one of innocence. What is it, Otou-san? Why are you and Ka-san up so late? She cautiously walked into the traditionally decorated room. Sakura, you're 16. You've been a legal adult by shinobi law for 4 years. Her father was curt, all business. Her mother stood to the side, pointedly not looking at her. What are you getting at, Otou-san? A quirkily confused expression adorned her face. We think you should move out, Sakura. You've been ready for a long time. The harsh voice scraped at her brain, raped her senses. No sweetums, no chans. I understand, Ka-san. She wouldn't cry, because she had seen this coming. Coming forever. It was kind of sick. Find an apartment, Sakura. As soon as possible. Not once had her mother said a word to her. How absolutely rude. That night, Naruto sat in his room. Looked at his things. His aged TV, the stained couch, the threadbare rug, dented dishes, tarnished lamps, patched clothing. He had once adored these few things, things that loved him. He knew that they did, because they never, not once, had left him. But now he would be leaving them. Tonight was the night of Uzumaki Naruto's salvation. He didn't bother to pack anything. Just a spare change of special clothes. These clothes didn't look like his normal clothes. No, from now on, he would be exemplary. Normal. Naruto glanced at the clock. Nearly 8 o'clock, that it was. Time to go. He exited his apartment, locked the door as per usual, patted his back pocket where Gama-chan was safely secured with all of his sage wisdom. The package of clothing concealed so no one could see it. Naruto cheerily walked contrary to popular belief, he does not skip all the time, to a minor gate of the village, the one allotted to regular citizens who were simply exiting for a short period of time before returning home. One he waved cheerily to the chunins assigned to guard it during daylight hours. Their shift was just ending. Kiba called a greeting to Naruto as he hopped off the giant fence that surrounded the village. Yo, Naruto. Macho as ever, Kiba. How's it going? Akamaru barked in unison with his partner. Alright, Kiba, just heading out to train in the real forest, ya know. Gotta beat Sasuke someday. Yeah, he's giving us a bad name. Uchiha are no good luck with that. No small amount of bitterness towards the Uchiha laced his statement. A small amount of good-natured sarcasm did steep throughout the latter half, though. Gotta go, though, or Akamaru and I'll miss what's left of dinner. Yeah, Kiba, you do that. Kiba waved at the pair arriving to relieve him and the other chunin guard of their shift. He's clean, don't bother checking him. Kiba. That's bad policy. The others nodded at him, and Naruto progressed through the terminally open gate. Time to do his thing. He walked into the forest, far enough away from anyone that no one would notice his presence. He rubbed at his cheeks and patted his hair down, stripped off his garish clothes and pulled on the black pants and navy shirt, leaving the chunin vest he had been wearing on the ground. Naruto sat on the ground and pulled on his foreign slippers that covered his toes. They felt strange to his feet and mind. His toes were not often encased, even in socks, and his eyes unused to not seeing his toes. With a simple hand seal, Naruto initiated a simple fire jutsu to burn the orange clothes to less than ashes once he had thrown them in the air. They were quickly whisked away. He bandaged his calves and arms in strips of weighted black cloths, and decided that he was ready. For good measure, he rubbed some dirt on his clothes, skin, and hair, and ran around a bit, to work up a slight flush on his cheeks. Then he jetted for the main road into Konohagakure. "Sir, what is your purpose for being here?" The guard stoically performed his interrogation. "I'm simply a wandering genin from far away, ninja-san. I wanted to possibly make a home of this village." The guard looked at the traveler. No sign of a guarded expression, although slightly nervous. "Everything seems to be in order for now, Arashi-san. If you haven't registered yourself in 2 weeks we'll have to deport you, and you'll need to get a job, too. Konoha has no use for more lazies. If you want to pursue a career as a shinobi, you'll have to speak with the Hokage-sama." The blonde and blue boy smiled. Of course, that was what happened the day Naruto disappeared, and the day Arashi arrived. To be continued, and thank you for watching.